The commitment of Jayln Crawford confirms that Auburn's impressive run of cornerbacks will go on for years to come.
Freezing temperatures are likely for several hours inland and a few hours closer to the coast.
Yes.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day, live from SEC Media Days with the one and only Darrell Dapprich. Very, very fun first day here up in Nashville. But before we get to Media Days and what's happening later today and later this week, we've got to talk about the big news that happened when Auburn added the commitment from Jayln Crawford, the four-star corner from the great state of Georgia. And Darrell, what this does to me is it continues Auburn's, I don't want to say guaranteed run, but let's throw it out there, guaranteed run of successful corners that's really gone back the past decade at this point.
It's big on a couple fronts, Zach. First of all, it's big because what you mentioned, Auburn's got a tradition now in the last 4 or 5 years of putting corners in the league, and I think that really benefits from a recruiting standpoint. You can sell that. It's also big because Auburn's going to lose a lot of corners in the cornerback room in the next 2 years, so they're stockpiling that through their recruiting classes. It's big to get back in Gwinnett County, too. He's from Parkview High School in Georgia. That's used to be an old stomping ground for Auburn. Brad Lester, the running back, was from there, and it's a great high level of high school football that Auburn needs to get back in and take some of that stranglehold that Georgia had, Zach, from there.
And I don't know if you heard, but as soon as he committed, we put up a video. It was me talking with Locked On recruiting expert Brian Smith, and he said Gwinnett County, he thinks it's the best county for high school football in the country.
That's big.
And this is the guy he's based out of Miami. I mean, that's
and Texas. You think of some of the Texas.
No doubt.
So that is. And
No
I think the other thing too to look at is that we kind of felt this was coming for a while. He was crystal ball to Auburn for a long time. But do not underestimate what a really truly elite corner he is. I've heard he's probably the best corner at this point in the state of Georgia, probably top 10 in the country. When you get a lockdown corner like that at that elite level, you think about Kyan Lee at one side and maybe Crawford on the other side in a couple years. You need that. And then I liked what Brian said, your recruiting expert. He plays 3 different corner positions on the field: boundary, slot, field. He does all different things. So the versatility of this kid is off the charts.
100%. But now, so you look at this run of corners that Auburn's been on. And if you watch this show, if you're an everyday or I love the cornerback position, but Carlton Davis to Jamel Dean to Noah Igbenogany to Roger McCreary to DJ James. And now we think Kyan Lee will be the next guy. And then I think Jayln Crawford can extend this even more years into the future. And so shout out to Coach Crime Dog. Zach Etheridge got a lot of love, but it sounds like Crime was kind of the leading recruiter in a lot of this. So hats off to all of them. But you mentioned the ability to play quickly because there's so much age in this room this year where you're going to lose DJ, you're going to lose Nehemiah Pritchett. And so now all of a sudden you go into next year with JD Rem and Kyan Lee, and we hope Keontae Scott, he's eligible to leave and go pro after this year. We'll see what happens. But all of a sudden, look, it's not an ideal situation to start a freshman, but this is a guy where you're like, you're okay starting him to some extent. I mean, he's already 6 foot, 180, according to his page on 247. He's got a full year left of high school football. I just think when you look at the level of excellence at Auburn's cornerback position over the past decade, since Carlton Davis took over in that Will Muschamp defense forever ago, he extends that position as far as, I think greatness. I think greatness is really what you look at it. Because look who they beat out for Jayln Crawford. They beat out the 2 big folks that a lot of people would label as cornerback U with LSU and Florida. But I would argue, Darrell, over the last decade, Auburn's had better corners in both of those schools.
It's amazing that through this hiatus of subpar recruiting that we saw in the Harsin era, that the cornerback room still stayed fairly strong.
Zac Etheridge.
Exactly. So you look through the potato years, the potato famine, the great potato famine, and the last 2 years, if you look at Auburn's strong, we talked about this on one of the previous shows, their strongest position group right now is cornerback. I feel like even more than running back. So even though there was a hiatus there, it still stayed strong. In order to keep that tradition going, you better recruit 4 and 5 stars at the corner position. They've got some safeties coming in that I'm real high on as well. So they're doing a really good job in the secondary. But it's amazing to me that position group did not drop off. Even though it could have, and either other areas did, it didn't drop off. And that speaks volumes, as you said, Zac Etheridge doing a great job on the recruiting trail.
That's right. And the safeties too. I mean, there's a lot of, excitement for Terrence Love, Sylvester Smith, but we'll see how all those pieces fit together. But Jayln Crawford, a guy that raises Auburn's class, I think, in the ceiling of Auburn's class, just because what he's able to do at multiple positions. And once again, just who they beat out. And we've talked about, Hugh Freeze going after Harry Thompson, who's committed to Alabama, or Riddick. Riddick's first name is DeMarcus Riddick, who's, the linebacker committed to Georgia. It's so nice to see us consistently winning battles against other top schools in the SEC. When I think a lot of Auburn fans kind of got in their mind, it's like, oh no, Florida's recruiting him. Dang it. Oh no, LSU really wants this guy. Dang it. Oh no, Alabama or Georgia really wants this guy. And the Joseph Phillips win, I think, is probably the best example of this, but Crawford definitely kind of puts a tally under it. It's just so nice to have a staff that's, one, willing, and it almost kind of seems like they enjoy it going up against the other top schools, but now consistently winning it. It's such a great feeling. We'll
talk later on in the next segment about certain things that I think are key indicators on whether you're doing something great in recruiting. People get so caught up in the rankings, but I look at one thing that we'll talk about in the next segment, but one of the other things I look at is offer list. I don't care if you're a 3-star, if you beat out Georgia or an Alabama or an LSU or Florida and those coaches want you, the star means nothing to me. It's about people that can evaluate talent and no talent. And if you win national championships like Kirby Smart and Nick Saban do, and you recruit kids and you beat them head to head for those kids and they want them on their roster, that is a win. I don't care what the stinking star says.
That's right. Corners that are wanted by LSU and Florida. I mean, just look at the track record. I mean, that's elite stuff. But when you just look at the trail of corners that Auburn has had, I feel good about the position for the next 3 or 4 years. I think you need a grad transfer after this season, or a transfer of some sort after this season. But just the level of upside of Kayan Lee and now Jayln Crawford for the next multiple season at Auburn. I mean, there's just a lot to be. And look, I think we forget about this kid a lot because he committed so early, but Amon Lane is a very good corner in this 2024 class that we continue to forget about.
We do. And JD Rim, how he's going to come and progress as well. We saw him.
We hope.
Yeah, we've seen some stuff at the end of the year last year. So, I just trust this position group and these position coaches, not only from a recruiting standpoint, Zac, but a developmental standpoint as well.
That's right. All right. Quality or quantity? What do we need to be looking at more right now when looking at these 2024 classes? And of course, also we'll preview what's happening at SEC Media Days right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB at FanDuel, and you get 10 times your first bet amount and bonus bets up to $200. So that's right. Just bet $20 and you can get $200 back in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. I think you should do that and take the over for Auburn 6.5 wins.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
That's free money. You're welcome. Bet 200, get up to $200, and you'll definitely, I think that's a sure bet. And look, the great thing about FanDuel is it's actually easy to get your money back. Most sports books, it's like, okay, I won, but where's my money? I don't want it in crypto or anything like that. I want actual money. So sign up today, FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 back in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball and the Locked On Podcast Network. Quality or quantity? That's the big question for recruiting. And that's kind of why you see inconsistencies in the rankings at this point of the year, Darrell, because right now Auburn just has 11 guys committed. And it's a situation where you look at Auburn's class and you see all these 4-stars and it's it doesn't feel like they're ranked as low as they actually are.
The average star rating has always been something I look at, and Auburn, I believe, is 5th in the SEC right now in the average star ranking. So it's because they only have 11 recruits. If they were at 16 or 17 with the same average, they'd be probably a top 15 class. To me, here's the deal. When I look at recruiting and recruiting philosophy, one of the things you can count on or is more of a known X factor is quantity. if you're at 11 right now, it's pretty much guaranteed you're going to be at 20 by the time signing day comes along.
Mhm.
That's money in the bank per se. That's something that's a known. What's not known and wasn't easy to come by, what you can't take for granted and make an assumption, is quantity.
Right.
You don't know. It's not a given that you're going to get a 5-star or a high 4-star.
Sure.
So when you have that already in your back pocket and you're at a 0.90 ranking right now, the quantity is going to come.
Right.
Get the quality out of the way first, because that's not a guarantee. That's not a given. Quantity is. Quantity is. Auburn will not be sitting at 11 recruits come December, more likely 19 or 20. So we know that's going to happen.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And what you don't know for sure is the quality. So that's why it's good to get that out of the way. And that's why I put more of an emphasis on the average. And like I mentioned before, the offer list.
Yeah. When you look at different sites, obviously the average rating is going to be different, but Auburn has the third best average player ranking when you look at rivals. They trail only Ohio State, who has 18 commitments, 2 5-stars, 13 4-stars, and Georgia, who has 26, which is ridiculous. I mean, that's just crazy. And they only have 2 5-stars and 19 4-stars. Auburn, of their 11 total commits, are 9 4-stars pretty much across the board.
And that's in the country. I mentioned SEC before with the composite. This is the country.
247, I believe, is different. I believe 247 has Auburn a little bit lower. Let's see. This is on 3. And on 3 has Auburn at 20th when you look at average ranking. And that would be 1, 2. Alabama, Georgia, Florida, A&M, and Tennessee are the only SEC schools ahead of them.
That's what I look at. I mean, again, it's the unknown factor. It's the quantity that the commodity of I'm getting high quality kids right now recruiting. Right. Get that bird in the hand, so to speak, because the quantity is going to come. And I suspect some of the bigger names along with the quantity will come more quality. So when some of these guys that potentially could flip, and there are some names we're hearing that could come at the end of July or in August. By the time December,
Perry Thompson changed that.
Riddick,
DeMarcus Riddick changes that.
Barber changes that. There's some guys that could go that Auburn not only gets quantity but gets quality as well, and that vaults you into a top 10 class. I heard Brian, that's his name, your recruiting expert, talk about if some of the things go the way he feels, not the Auburn folks, not people that do Auburn shows, but a national recruiting guy. If it breaks the way he thinks, he says Auburn can get a top 10 class.
I think so. And I think it may be higher in average player ranking because, look, there's no reason in the world of the transfer portal now, there's no reason to settle anymore. I don't think.
No.
I don't think just don't get a guy just to fill a roster spot anymore.
Right.
I think if this is a guy that you think, okay, here is his clear path to playing time, you add him. And if you can't answer that question, if you're a coaching staff, I'll get a third-year player that's played, even if they've played only 200 snaps in their career, it's like he's got a higher floor than this kid. I'll take him in the transfer portal in December.
And one of the points that comes along with that, it's a domino effect. It's a cause and effect. Auburn will dip into the transfer portal less and less as these recruiting classes get greater and greater because the needs will be reduced. You still will go to the portal. You still will snatch 5 to 8 kids a year to go for immediate needs.
Ideally.
But
I think
you won't
we're
have
years
to
away from that, though.
See, I think they're 3 years away, 2 or 3 years away from that at the most. Okay. I think Auburn's 24 and 25 class will be a precursor to Auburn only getting 5 guys in the portal in 25. And it's going to be, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? It's an immediate need because I think these recruiting classes that he's fixing to get in 24 and 25 will narrow that scope.
I think that'd be huge. The only pushback I have on that is a lot of people projecting 20, 21 guys in this class. And it's like, well, eventually you're going to have to replace those guys or replace those spots. But I'm with you. I mean, I think you're going to see double-digit guys join this team in December.
What's the difference, though, is here's the difference. It's a mindset of I'm going to go to the portal and get guys for depth as opposed to I better go get guys that can start right now and fill this immediate need because I'm desperate. So when you're flipping a roster, you're getting guys out of desperation that you need to contribute right away.
Yeah.
If you're going to get guys just to provide depth because of the numbers game, completely different scenario. And that's what the big boys are doing right now. They're filling spots just for depth.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia and Alabama, they're not
going to get a quarterback in the portal. I mean, they get Buckner. Alabama gets Buckner, but I don't think he'll start. I mean, that's an example of just getting depth into a position room.
Yeah, right. When in reality, Auburn's relying on transfers to save program.
To start on the offensive line, to start at receiver, to start at the most important position on the field at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
There will come a day where I don't think you'll need to do that. I think your quarterback will come from recruiting.
I think you look at this class and be like,
I think you've got him right now in Walker White.
Right, Walker White. It's like, okay, well, Fat Burnett's probably your running back.
Mm-hmm.
The offensive line hasn't really come into play yet. I think your starting DBs are already there. Like, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm 100% with you.
And linebackers, edge, Phillips and blocked in on the defensive end.
Yeah, DJ Barber.
Right. You're
Right.
starting to see that. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think is going to end up getting only better. And I think he's 2 years away from that being reality.
I think that's huge. And so we're both in the same boat. Yes, Auburn's a little bit farther down when you look at ranking, but be sure to look at the average player ranking. They're right in the thick of it, and I think they're ready to compete in a few years if they keep recruiting at this. And look, I think it's only going to go up because there's a lot of folks that know a lot about Auburn recruiting and national recruiting, and they've got several 5-stars projected in this class, and none of those chips have fallen yet. Now, granted, the chip has to fall, but obviously when it does, it's going to really keep that going. So quality over quantity, and that's definitely the game that this coaching staff is certainly playing. SEC Media Days is here. We tell you what we expect from day one today, next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Want to encourage you to join the Locked On Auburn Discord. It is free. All you have to do is click the link in the episode description down below. Darrell, we're live from Radio Row at SEC Media Days. We're here courtesy of some good friends of ours.
Yeah, we're very thankful for Clay Benson, attorney at law in the Montgomery area. I'll go ahead and give the phone number, 334-356-1925, for any of your legal needs, criminal representation, estate planning, small business transaction, injury cases. I can say that because the company I work for and myself personally has used Clay. He's been in business for over 25 years, and I've used him for 20 of those. Of course, there is that disclaimer that we have to read. No representation is made. That the quality of the legal services performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers. We appreciate Clay's support.
Absolutely. Clay is a class act. Please give him some love and thought when you need an attorney. Absolutely. So day one of SEC Media Days is here. And I think from an Auburn point of view, it's all about what is Commissioner Sankey going to say. I think we're going to see a lot of, presentations on how much money they're bringing in. And obviously with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma next year, that's going to be very, very exciting. But Darrell, I'm curious to see if we see any kind of shots back at the Big 12. The Big 12 kind of took some shots, not only at the SEC, but Texas and Oklahoma then leaving for the SEC. I think we see some like feisty Sankey later today.
I think that's a great point. I think there will be some shots fired across the bow because there was in Big 12 Media Days, and there's still a lot to be wrapped up there. But I think that kind of a state of the union, and that's the great thing about what Commissioner Sankey brings to these events.
Right.
The last few years, something has broke, whether it's a schedule formula or whether it's A&M, whether it's Texas and Oklahoma coming into the league. So I think there'll be some clarification maybe with some future scheduling. I'm interested to hear the pushback, or if people really, really put his feet to the fire on the 9-game schedule as opposed to the 8, if that's something that might happen. So I'm interested to see. I think it's at 1:30 tomorrow. We'll bring details today. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's today. Today's Monday. He'll bring details. We'll bring details from that and kind of follow up as to what the high points were.
Yeah. And so I think he's going to have to address, or he'll be asked a question about scheduling, what the future of the schedule looks like. We know 24, but it kind of seems like that was a Band-Aid until they actually figure out a real formula. He'll be asked about future TV deals. He'll be asked about realignment. Are there more schools coming? Or is Texas and Oklahoma it for a while? I hope they're not. Give me Florida State. Give me Clemson. Give me Miami, please. Thank you.
Yeah, that would completely change college football to just 3 super conferences.
It'd be incredible. It'd be incredible. Yeah, let's take it from the ACC. Who cares? But yeah, I think those are going to be the biggest points. And I can't imagine he's going to be too direct with any of those questions, except for scheduling. It would not shock me if he broke some news about scheduling this week.
We need to see it. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear, like I said, if he's going to talk about, is it going to be a pod system? Is it going to be 3 common opponents? Is it going to go to 9 games? All that, I think, in the future. This had to be done quickly, 2024 schedule. I get it. But
it didn't have to. It had to because they kicked the can so long.
They did. And I think the other thing that I'd like to hear and like to see is I think that this formula of announcing this schedule every year on a television program.
Give
like
it to me.
Do it every year.
Please.
That needs to happen. That's something that happens in June where it's otherwise a slow time. If you think about it, you'd have that in June, SEC Media Days in July. You really start to kick off things in August. You would have eyeballs and earlobes focused on the SEC an additional month. And I think that's the schedule reveal to me is a wonderful event. I think it's awesome.
I'm with you. All right, so follow along with us all week. We will be live from Radio Row. And we've already got a few exciting guests lined up. And so we're looking forward to bringing you coverage all week long. Darrell, how can people follow along with you in the meantime?
DAP6410 and Twitter be tweeting a lot of things out while we're here. A lot of little quotes, a lot of anecdotes, pictures, that kind of thing. You can also follow me on the Discord, the Auburn Discord.
Yep. And that Discord is free. All you have to do is click the link in the episode description down below. You can follow all my socials at Zac Blackerby. And we're going to put up a ton of stories, auburndaily.com. Until then, we'll see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.